Charlotte Lewis with Share with Charlotte podcast, where emphasis is placed on finding balance in relationships. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And before I dive into this new topic, I'd like to invite you to check out my other episode on my channel. And if you like the message that you hear, please click the like button. And if you have not subscribed or follow, please do so and become a part of my podcast community. So thank you again for tuning in. And I want to go ahead and get started with this new topic at hand, which there are so many things that we have to deal with when it comes to finding balance in relationship. There are so many topics, so many issues. And again, I've always said that men have biggest problem in the world, and that is finding balance in relationships. We struggle with relationships. And so this topic is very, very critical because it's titled Relationship Setting Boundaries. Setting boundaries, setting healthy boundaries. And some of you have set those healthy boundaries, and some of you have not set any boundaries. And that is not healthy. So let's define really what boundaries are. That's first. Boundaries are rules. They're guidelines and they're limits. And everyone have their own guidelines, their own limits, and their own rules as to what makes them uncomfortable and what makes them to a place of being comfortable. And so you share what these things are with other people so that they will know what you're comfortable with, but they also know what you're not uncomfortable with. And some of us shy away from sharing that because we don't want to lose friends, we don't want to lose the relationship. But what you do is you lose yourself. And that's not good either. Matter of fact, that's worse. You can build other relationships, but you can't get away from yourself. So if you're not being honest with the people that you're around as to who you truly are, then you live in a facade as to what this person is in you. And we all have and should have boundaries. I remember distinctly when I was young, and I was like dating in my 20s and stuff, and what turned me off, and this was one of my boundaries, and it's called conversational boundaries. And that was someone with a foul mouth. Just every other word was a curse word, just foul mouth. Some people are like, well, it's not your curse. Well, but I got to hear it. And it was just such a turnoff to me. I don't care what you had going for yourself. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how well you like me or whatever. All I know is I can't not be in a space where it's just a lot of profanity. And that was a turnoff for me. That was my boundaries when it comes to conversation. And we're going to dive more into to more conversational boundaries in just a short while. But let me just say that if you have not set those boundaries, those healthy boundaries in place, then you really are living a life with your friends and your family and your people that you know, your partner or whatever, because you're not really being true to yourself. It's nothing wrong with having boundaries. It's healthy to have boundaries. And first, I want to talk about personal boundaries. Your personal boundaries could be you as what offends you as a person, but also what offends you or as when it comes to like what belongs to you, your personal space, your what you own in life. That's something you own on a person that belongs to you. And it just remind me of situation where people you may visit somebody's house and it could be someone you know or even close to you. And their rule, keep in mind, this is rule, limits, and guidelines that someone has shared with you as far as what make them comfortable, but also what make that they're uncomfortable with. And you go to their house and they're saying, well, one of our rules here is that you take off your shoes. You're like, why I gotta take off my shoes? Well, because that's you in my personal space. You have not entered my door. You're not in my personal space in a house that I own. And that are one of my rules. And so if someone says that to you, by you following the things that they put in line for you to follow, and they have every right to do that, then that's showing a level of respect you have for them. And by you not doing that, that shows also a level of disrespect. And so It made me also think about, you go to the airport and you go through the line, the security line. I would love for you to argue with them about whether or not you take up your shoes, your belt, empty your pockets, you do all those things. Because it's their rules, it's their limits, and it's their guidelines when it comes to making sure everything is in place when it comes to security as you get ready to board that plane. They want safety. That's their rules. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna argue? Because I guarantee you, you debate that, you're not flying. It's no different. They have boundaries. You have a right to have boundaries. You have a right. And but you also, the other person has a right to be respected of what those boundaries are. Same thing. So if you're looking at on a personal boundary as well, you also could be one who love PDA, public display of affection. Everybody's not comfortable with that because this is me. This is my personal body. This is me. If someone is not comfortable with public PDA, but you feed on this, you love this, it's going to be hard to believe that you guys are a good match because that's something they love, but you totally dislike. It makes you uncomfortable. Now, if you're out in public and you see that, that's public. You don't own that space. So you have a right to walk away. If they're comfortable with it, they're comfortable with it, as long as they're not breaking the law. But you can walk away from it because it's not your private space. It's public. We all have different boundaries. We're not made up of the same. What makes me uncomfortable in a situation may not make you uncomfortable in a situation because we're made up of different things. But what you have to do is ask yourself, what are you comfortable with? And what are you not comfortable with? Because if you go into a relationship and it's about real talk with people, real conversation when it comes to that. People don't like holding hand. I'm not a touchy-feely person, you say. Well, I am. I'm a real touchy-feely person. But everybody are not the same. That's why it's good to find somebody that you also have some sense of compatibility. But do you have to be compatible on all things? No. But the things that are very important to you, it helps a whole lot in a relationship if you guys value a lot of the same things. And I'm not saying you have to mimic the other person because you don't. But when you have someone who adhere to your boundaries, that really is saying, I respect you. I value my relationship with you. I don't want you to run away from me. I want if anything run toward me. Because when people disrespect boundaries that you put in place or don't adhere to those boundaries, at some point you're going to pull away, most likely, because they make you uncomfortable. Anytime you're with someone, you want to be comfortable and you want to feel safe. Those are two things. You want to feel comfortable and you want to feel safe around anybody that you consider a relationship with, whether it be your partner, your spouse, whether it be your workplace, or wherever, your family. Because even family can make you feel uncomfortable because they're not you and you're not them. They could be so over the top with stuff that you just don't even like being around them. You know why? They don't have a filter. And if they know that that's how you really are, that they make you uncomfortable, then you choose not to be around that person or you limit your contact with that person because they make you feel uncomfortable. You have a right to be in any space with anybody at any time to be comfortable and to be safe. So that's on the personal. But let's talk again about the conversational boundaries. You know, the election is going on right now. You can't talk politics to everybody. People get upset, they get mad. Because you're very passionate about your choice, they're very passionate about their choice. And sometimes that can go really in a bad place, in a bad space. But another thing that also is one of religion, because there's so many different types, and so many people worshiping so many different things, and or some people don't worship at all or don't believe in anything. They just got here, just got here from just happen and nothing just happened. And so you're trying to speak with them about God and Jesus, their spiritual journey, and trying to place in their heart knowing that Jesus is real, God is real. We living in a world where you need him. And sometimes they create an argument because they think you full of a bunch of crap and you just following to be following. And it's hard a lot of time to talk religion to people. Sometimes you just have to pull back. You can always revisit, but sometimes you just need to pull back. And then it's a big topic too, also sexuality, sexual conversation that make people cringe and uncomfortable. But they're like, I can't talk. That's like a taboo conversation. And some people even have a difficult time even discussing that even with their own partners. So that you don't know what they have been instilled in their own life as they were younger, that they have been tainted, that they have now shut down. That's a conversation that's totally, totally taboo. We don't discuss that. But that's an ugly word. And so they are uncomfortable. But if that's one of the things, then it's like some of the things really you have to go through counseling because it runs that deep. The root is that deep. But you have to decide where your boundaries are when it comes to conversation. What turns you off? What are your boundaries saying, I'm uncomfortable with this, if this has been discussed? It could be one of just pure gossip. I don't deal with gossip. So don't talk gossip to me. You want to talk gossip? That's one of my boundaries. I'll walk away. You walk away. But you have to decide. It's doing a self-discovery. What are your boundaries? And have you shared those boundaries with the people so that they would know what you're comfortable with and what you're also not comfortable with? Because if you don't share, they don't know. And you can't blame them for making you uncomfortable because you never shared that with them. That's not their fault. And then you have also time boundaries. Time boundaries is when you can be in a relationship. They don't have to be your spouse or your partner. It could be your friend, but they love to consume all your time. But what you also love, your boundaries, I love some me time. Now, some people might like that. I'm with you all the time. I've seen couples, I'm serious, where you see one, you're going to see the other. They're going to be inseparable. But the sad thing is, if one is uncomfortable with what that is, that I have to be with you all the time, that I can't be and find my own me time, that person is living very miserably in that relationship. And she might not, or he may not, have even told her that I also want my space and need my space because I also need to identify with myself to create some things within me that does not have nothing to do with you. But he's a cleaner or she's a cleaner. And what happens is that he just go along or he just go along. That's what she loved at the expense of misery. And then you have two people who are very much that way, who just love the fact that they just love being together. They want to be inseparable. They go to the store, they go to the bank, they go to some business, somebody's house, they go this. They are inseparable. Only thing you have a right to do beyond me is probably just court. Anything probably beyond that, we're going to do together. That could come with some other stuff too. But right now, we're just talking about the boundaries. But sometimes that comes with insecurity. Sometimes. But your me time is important. If that me time is important to you, you have to express those boundaries with that person. Because your time in life is short, it flees, it's here, it's there. It's not always, and you want to value the time God gives you to the best of your ability. And so if that's a conversation you haven't had, you really should. Because you're lying to him or you're lying to her as if this is an all time of pleasure and enjoyment, when really you over there not having a good time. You're in a state of misery. But I'm going along to get along at the expense of me not having to really be in a place where I can enjoy myself, whether it be with other people or just quiet time with yourself, just go do you. And so, with that being time boundaries, or you can read your time boundaries could be also be the fact that you look at you might want to go take a trip with somebody else and just to get away, but you're not allowed to do that because it create chaos in the relationship. And you really want to do that, but you never in life get a chance to do that. And I have to just keep it real. You'll die that way because if you die first, you live your whole life with that person being not really truly who you are. And that's not good. But time is precious, people. Time is so, so precious that we don't want to just not give time what time is due, and it's the best of ourselves because it's fleeting. And then you also have what you call relationship boundaries. And those relationship boundaries are those people that you have either been honest with or you've been dishonest with. And keeping your mouth quiet, not sharing your thought, is being dishonest because you haven't been true to yourself, who these people are. You want to build a healthy relationship, you want to build a full relationship, and you want to build an honest relationship, and be real, be true with the people that you care about, and you hope they care about you. And I know I did an episode on trust. Trust them with your boundaries. Trust them with your boundaries. Because if they care about you, then they should respect you and your boundaries, with your boundaries. All about the same. Because it matters. The relationship matters. But if you're not being true to those relationships, then those relationships is built on them not truly knowing who you are. Then a lot of times in the relationship, you'll eventually pull back because they make you uncomfortable or they make you feel unsafe. So you don't, why we never see you, why you don't come around. Well, there's reason a lot of times that you don't, but you haven't revealed that. And probably if all you had to say was what it is, how do you know that they wouldn't give you that respect? So are you even doing any justice to the relationship? And even with your partner, your spouse, how honest are you with them? It's your relationship. What are you needing from them? So that you can feel safe, that you can feel in a place of balance with them when I'm with you, that you know my boundaries. You with a partner, that's a relationship. I don't like being yelled at. Let's have a conversation. But when you yell with me, I'm uncomfortable with that. You get physical with me. I'm uncomfortable with that. You curse me. You call me out my name. I'm uncomfortable with that. Boundaries. You leave and don't come back for to the next morning because we had an argument. I'm uncomfortable. Those are boundaries. Those are boundaries. Because it got to be about those are boundaries. That is just saying, I'm uncomfortable with you just walking out, leaving. That's uncomfortable to do that. There's so many boundaries, but and not to say they're all you, because we all have our own. But we all should have boundaries. Because again, if you don't have boundaries, neither will the other people around you, with you, will have boundaries because they won't. They'll be unfiltered. And you haven't shared with them what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with. You owe that to them. That's not good. And then you're gonna have at this point, one more, which is conversation. We talked about that. We talked about time boundaries, physical boundaries, we talked about personal boundaries. All of those things make up really who you are. All those things, whether you share, don't share, it's still in you. It's still in you. You're still uncomfortable with it. Even when you don't express it, you're still uncomfortable. And if you want to be healthy, if you want to find that balance in relationship that you need not only from yourself, but you need to find that balance in other people as you negate, as you um, build these relationships with people and you actively involved, you have to set healthy boundaries. You have to set healthy boundaries. And you know what they are. And you know if you ever spoke them, and you know if you have, and people who don't respect them, and here's the kicker. What do you do when your boundaries are ignored? What do you do? If your boundaries are ignored, and they clearly know your boundaries, but nothing happens as far as consequences, then why should they adhere to your boundaries, respect your boundaries, follow your boundaries? Why? Because nothing happens, but that's on you. Because you determine what the consequences are. And no consequence be just pulling back. No consequence could be that you address it. But to do nothing is worse. Because people show how they feel, they show respect, they show how they value you when they know something is within your boundaries and you're in a place of where something you're not comfortable with and they just choose to do it anyway. That doesn't speak a whole lot as how much they care about you. And they're just keeping it real. Because your feelings should matter. Because when they disappoint you to do that anyway, it stings. It's a disappointment. But that's on you. You have to decide whether or not there's consequences or not. Because you know what your boundaries. We don't know your boundaries. You know your boundaries. So are you putting consequences in place? Or you just letting stuff just pass by? So one boundary is broken, another one, another one, another one. And I know it's work. Trust me, I know this is work. This is work. But you're worth the work. See, that's the difference. It's work, but you're worth the work. Because you care about the balance within yourself. And that's first, yourself. You want to be healthy and whole within you. And people just ignore your boundaries. You keep coming around and there's no consequences for it. You're going to be so off balance every time you're around that person. You already know what's coming. But the decision has to be on you. And so relationships, setting healthy boundaries is necessary. It's a must. And if you want to say, well, I have no boundaries, I've not met anybody who liked everything that goes right or wrong with them. Being cursed out, called names, hit on. Do you really get that? So that's okay. And some boundaries can be so simple as something simple as, in my house, we eat at wooden tables. I'd rather you use a coaster, but you keep coming back and you keep putting this wet glass on my wooden table, leaving rings on my table, and you can only say, I forgot only once. But you can't forget all those times you keep coming back. And I know it seems small to some people, maybe, but if that's one of your rules, your limits, your guidelines, when it comes into my space, my personal space, then it's a matter of respect. I'm going to need a coaster, put a napkin, put something. But if you continue to want to put a ring around my table, then I got to wonder what's your problem? And there's some hating going on that you just, matter of fact, I have nice stuff and you don't like the fact that I do. So let me stain it with a ring. I don't know. But you do question things as to people's motive. And that's another thing. What are people's motive for not following and respecting you? Because it is respect, people. It's respect. So what are their motive to disrespect you? That's something to ask. Because someone that's deliberately, continuously disrespect, you must have a problem with me. Then what is your problem with me? And it can't be that's just the way I am. That's just a saying that you just think we supposed to accept. No, because you have a brain, a workable brain that's functioning. That means you can think, you remember, but you do it anyway. The thing that you do that you know hurt me, disappoint me. You know my boundaries because I made it clear. And at the same time, you keep doing it anyway. So what is your problem with me? What's your problem with me? To not get the respect that I feel that I'm entitled to, or you should care to give me. So what is your problem with me? And that's a question I ask people. Because you want to feel worthy. You want to feel valued. But that's how you feel worthy to that person. And that's how you feel valued with that person. It's not what they say, it's what people do. It's what people do. People spew out all kind of stuff out their mouth. It sounds good, but now you're waiting for it to be put into action. And if they can't put it into action, it's just empty words. You tell people your boundaries, like, no, I get it, I get it. But they don't follow through, just words. But don't lower your boundaries. I'm just saying, if you really truly are uncomfortable with something, don't lower your boundaries. Because you're just going to find yourself uncomfortable. And that's going to bleed into some other stuff, like resentment, attitude, pulling away, shutting down. Could be a lot of things. Where you despise a person for taking away your bound or made you feel that you have to take away your boundaries. And to be so uncomfortable in a relationship. That's not good. Now, can some of your boundaries, and I'm just gonna say this, keeping it real, could be some boundaries that I don't have to have that. It's just something I prefer, but don't necessarily have to. Those are different things. To prefer something and have to, different things. And I'm not saying that you can't compromise on some things, but things you don't compromise are the one that makes you uncomfortable. Something can be frivolous, yes. We got a little pet peeves, we got little things, but that's not critical stuff. These healthy boundaries are the things that are really, really important that you shouldn't have to compromise on. But frivolous thing, absolutely. It could be something like, don't sit on my bed. That's my rule, my personal space. Sit on my bed. That's just gonna get to the point that, but if somebody still respect your room, it's your personal space, you're gonna find a chair, or they're just gonna stand. Or you may be somebody who's germophobic. Maybe that's why you don't want somebody to sit on your bed. But then that becomes critical. Or it may be the fact that you don't want somebody to sit on your bed because I just made my bed and I don't want my sheet wrinkled. That's two different things. Or my bedspread wrinkled. That's something totally different. But if I'm a germophobic, your germs I don't want transferred on my bed, and I cannot now sleep in my bed. See, that's different. Totally different. But what are your boundaries? And have you expressed those boundaries to the people that need to know? What are your rules, your limits, your guidelines? That people know what you're comfortable with, and they also know what you're not comfortable with. Are you sharing? Because if you're not sharing again, they don't know you. They don't know you. Because all of that is truly also who you are. So I want to leave you with that. And I thank you for listening. I thank you for being a part of my podcast community. I hope this information has been one of encouragement, insightful, to just push you out there to be more you. And to also look at consequences when people choose to disrespect your boundaries. What consequences you put in place. Because you should have something. If it's nothing but a conversation, it's something. And then you decide your next move. Please follow, subscribe. If you like the message, please click like. Visit my website, www.sherwithcharlotte.com. I thank you again for tuning in. And if there's a topic that you might want to be discussed, I had a really good comment from a young lady that I will be addressing real soon with her concern that she wanted to be brought forward as a topic. And if you, again, have a subject matter that you would like to be for us to discuss and or whatever that is, please share your comments with me. I love reading them and I do respond back. So thank you again for tuning in. This is Charlotte, Share with Charlotte podcast. Finding balance in relationship is a must. Thank you so much.